Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. It's already Thursday, 4 days into this theme, Sounds from the Inbox, where I check out songs from bands who've contacted me and specifically requested for reactions to their music. Today we're going to be checking out a group called Illusions of Grandeur. The song is Crossing Over, and as with everything else this week, I can't say that I've heard of them. So again, we're going in completely uninformed. We have no idea what's coming up. I should say I have no idea what's coming up. I'm sure there are some people who may know about Illusions of Grandeur. Alright, so let's hit it. This one's Crossing Over. Alright. Low note held, like fire crackling, whispers, lots of ambience here to bring the song in. Yes. Lots of bass presence, really nice tom work. Really nice synergy between the guitars and the vocal line there. I'm not a big fan of the mix. It works. It can work. It just doesn't really work for me. There's something really interesting going with the melodic line here that, again, it just doesn't work for me, but I can't say I've heard it before, so I'm intrigued. Yeah, so a nice, really subdued guitar line. That leads into, okay. Can't tell if that backing vocal is distorted or if it just has a lot of compression on it. So I did not do a lot of talking during that. Usually I have more things to say uh, in some of the moment to moment stuff rather than raw analysis. Um, but okay, I'm pretty sure that's over now. Yeah, usually I have more to say about moment to moment ideas where I leave some of the larger aspects to kind of talk about afterwards. And the thing is, a lot of what I want to talk about here is sort of a larger concept. I think I mentioned a handful of things for moment to moment stuff during the reaction. Um, and this might end up being a fairly lengthy analysis section. Um, I do want to start out with some of the things that did not work for me. I mentioned earlier that that doesn't mean any of this is bad. It's just not necessarily my cup of tea. As with any sort of art, there are tools, there are millions of tools in the toolbox. Any of them can be used effectively, and any of them are also subject to the subjectivity of the listener. So some of these ideas might have been used quite effectively, but they just were not as effective on me as a listener because I don't necessarily enjoy what's going on. That is to say, in too many words, that this is just my opinion. Don't take any of it as fact or any sort of hard rules about how to write music and how, things not to do with music. I'm not saying anything like that. This is all my opinion and what I get out of it. And the couple of times I've clarified that before getting into the analysis, it's been very negative. I'm going to try not to do that. I do have some criticism for the song, but there is some really interesting things going on. I don't want this to end up being completely negative. Um, I will say that my having the song end, the state I'm in, is not necessarily enjoying it. There are definitely aspects that intrigue me. A lot of choices here that I don't know that I would have ever have done. I don't think they necessarily sound great to my ears, but that doesn't mean any of it is bad, and it doesn't mean that they're bad decisions. But I want to get into this. The first thing is the vocal mix. Actually, the mix is kind of a lot. There's a lot on the mix. Musically, I think it's a rather sound song. There's good composition going throughout as far as obtaining sort of a hard rock sound. I think they did a very good job at creating a goal and setting out and accomplishing it very well. But I do have some issues with the mix. First of all, it seems to take note of pop mixing. The vocals are very high, the guitars and drums are very low, and there's a large emphasis on the vocals. It was very difficult for me to tune in to the guitars and drums and bass and really listen to what was going on there. That's not to say it was impossible. It wasn't, a very poor mix. It just gave a lot of emphasis to the vocalist, which I think was just a tad too much emphasis, too much spotlight there, and also just sounds a bit unique when it comes to metal. Vocalists are definitely given a little bit of room in the mix, but not usually pushed so far forward um, in metal and rock. And then occasionally we've heard in some metal where the vocalist is actually stuffed down into the mix, sort of to muffle it or put it in line with the rest of the instruments, not really elevating it at all. Very, very rarely do we hear the vocalist so far in the front of the mix. So that right there is just a little interesting to me. I call it a pop mix. That is not any sort of derogatory word. I'm not putting down pop. I'm not putting down this song for utilizing that type of mix. It's just very interesting because it is a mixing style that we don't see too often in the rock and metal world. Um, the other thing about the vocal mix is the harmony. A lot of what's going on sounds dissonant, and I'm not sure if that was intentional given the pop style mix and sort of the pop style vocal melody lines. A lot of the stuff sticks around a central octave almost. There really isn't a lot of movement. And when we talk about movement within phrasing, we end up seeing a lot of very common ideas of sticking around a single note, either coming down step piece or just kind of hovering around a note. Again, it's very pop rock style vocal writing, and again, that's not a bad thing. But given that, normally we would hear some sort of harmony with any sort of vocal harmonies are going to be done to create a more beautiful sound. And this one was done to create a more dissonant sound. I'm not really sure what's going on. Sometimes it sounded like it was just an intonation issue, but other times it almost sounded like we were using some sort of a fourth on top of it, which is a tension building relationship. Um, it's not typically something you use throughout. You use it to create tension for your resolutions to be stronger. But just a lot of these sections feel tense in the vocal harmonies. I'm not, like I said, I'm not really sure why that was done. It could just be for this song. I don't know. I have not listened to the rest of the album or the rest of their discography. It is just, to me, an unusual choice. It is not bad by any means. If that is what you're going for, is a hard rock sound with poppier vocals, but you want to give them some edge, some crunch to sort of marry it better with that hard rock sound, that is definitely a way to go. Bands have done this before. Ginger's earlier stuff, some of her cleans were done with this sort of dissonant relationship as well. I was not a fan of it then either. It is just not a sound that I personally enjoy. I like beauty and harmonious note relationships, especially in the vocal work. Just a personal taste thing. Again, like I said, this can be done to good effect, and it actually kind of synergizes with the ideas if you're trying to take more popular vocals and inject them into a harder rock sound. This is definitely a way to do that. Um, the other interesting thing was the lack of resolution in a lot of the vocal lines. And what I mean by that is we don't see a lot of chordal movement. For instance, if we take the chorus uses the step piece idea, where you get da 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 da, something like that. I've said before, I'm not a very good singer. Those pitches might have been wrong, but you get the idea of kind of moving down steps. Um, but the thing is it's cyclical, right? We have a bunch of notes within a chord, and it just feels like we're going in the circle. Da 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 da. There's not any specific area that's building tension to provide resolution to any sort of tonic, because it feels like we are sitting within a single chord. There's not much progression. There's not much chordal movement going on. So it ends up feeling a bit flat, especially by the time we end the chorus. Now, I think a lot of that could be alleviated with some of the chordal work going on in the guitars. However, they're so far down in the mix that they don't seem to merge, and you don't get a lot of the tension and relationship building that the two should be building off of each other. There's just too much space for them, too much space between them for most, well, at least for me. I'm not going to say for most listeners. For me, to kind of see them as a similar idea and playing off of each other, getting that comparison and contrast. They sound like two completely different parts of the song almost. Um, and that's kind of my take on a first listen. Maybe there's actually some really good stuff going on as far as how those the vocal line works with the chord progression in the guitar. Maybe there's not, and it's not a mixing thing, and it's a composition thing. I don't really know from a first listen, but my gut tells me that that's a mix issue, because the guitar is playing chords and there is a bit of a progression going on in the chords. It isn't anything hyper complex, but it should be enough to help carry the vocal line. But again, maybe that is the purpose. Maybe these guys went out of their way and said, the song is about um, crossing over in some sense, and this is maybe the struggle to cross over. It's an eternal fight to get over that hurdle or something like that, and the cyclical nature that seems to lack any sort of resolution is thematically part of that concept. I don't know. As usual, I don't really get a chance to dig into lyrics on this channel, and it's not really my strong suit, anyways. Even if I could get into them, I'm really more about the music. um, but yeah, like I said, it might work in concept if you get the entire, the big picture ideas. But just with the music alone, there was something going on there specifically in the chorus with the vocal line. Um, I think that's really all the negative things. So I want to move to the positive. Um, First of all, I really dig the synergy that's going on. I think it was in the beginning. It was either the intro or the verse. Actually, come to think of it, I think it was the verse. There was a really strong rhythmic synergy between the drums, the guitar, and the vocals. Excuse me. And it worked really well. We saw some really strong beats and offbeat accents that were being hit with all three instruments, and really drove home a lot of power and strength in that line. Um, I think also that sort of ties back into the chorus. After you have such strong punchiness, you have all that synergy going on between three instruments rhythmically, that when we hit the chorus and they're sort of all doing their own thing, the guitar's doing like eighth note chords, um, and then the vocals are doing that step thing. Everybody kind of loses the strength and punchiness of being together, and then the mix does not help that, and the lack of chordal movement in the vocal line doesn't help it. And I think that might just be, it's sort of a contrast thing where, yes, the chorus ends up feeling a bit flat in idea, in concept by itself, but also when buttressed against the verse and you get all that punchiness and strength, it feels even more flat because of that. Um, so maybe just having those back to back just kind of emphasizes and isolates that idea, that little problem I have with the chorus. I'm gonna try not to come back to that. I think I've said my piece on the chorus. It's just that talking about the unification of sound in the verse led me back to thinking, yeah, maybe that really emphasized how the chorus felt to me. But yes, the verse was really well done. Like I said, I liked how a lot of it came together. The bridge, and the guitar solo was great. It wasn't super intricate. It wasn't super difficult to play or anything like that. But I think if it had been, it might have stood out a little bit. It was a little muted as far as technicality, and I think that fits in with what a lot of the band was doing at the time. and what the band has been doing so far up to that point. So I think it fit in really well. And if the guitarist can play more complex things, which they kind of alluded to a little bit at the end with those hammer-on runs, I think it was a very good choice to sort of play a bit restrained to kind of keep that mellow atmosphere against the heavy drums during that section. So, yeah, props to the guitarist on that. I do kind of wish it was more of a solo where we saw a beginning to end melody line rather than a repeated riff, but that's more of a personal taste. The riff itself worked well, and it was a nice palate cleanser compared to the verse and chorus that came before it. It was a very well done bridge, especially after we got talking about yesterday's bridge that fell a bit flat for me because not yesterday. Was it yesterday? I don't remember. Anyways, so no, not yesterday. It would have been Outwoods, which was Tuesday. Yeah, especially after talking about that bridge just falling a bit flat for me because there wasn't enough change compared to the other sections in the song. I think this one did a very good job of introducing a lot of change. While still retaining sort of the core DNA, and like I said, that kind of bleeds into the guitar solo as well, because they could have went off the rails and did some crazy guitar solo, and instead they stuck to something a bit more restrained that fit more into the atmosphere and story being told, rather than just saying, hey, this is my time to shine, I'm going to tear it up. So yeah, overall, I can't say that this is something I would return to, but if it was on, I would not turn it off by any means. I am intrigued about checking out some other stuff of theirs just to kind of see how much of my criticism, the things that I did not enjoy, carries over throughout their other stuff. If it is a mixed thing, I'd probably wager that most of the tracks on here are mixed very similarly. That's how albums are made. But I am very interested to see possibly how future songs end up getting made after they have the experience of creating this one, which I would wager to say is probably their first or second album. That's kind of the feeling I get with this. And I think if this is their first album, it is a fantastic entry. It's definitely a little rough around the edges, but nothing that can't be fixed or worked on or learned out. Just an experience thing as well. So, yeah, I'm excited about the future of Illusions of Grandeur and kind of seeing how they evolve from here. I think they have a lot of room for improvement, but I also think they have the skills to improve on them as well. Really transform into a powerhouse band. All right, those are my thoughts on Illusion of Grandeur's Crossing Over. This is where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this track. Anything you enjoyed, anything you didn't enjoy. Yeah, let me know. There's a description box, links to the Discord and Patreon, as well as a link to something of Illusions of Grandeur, maybe their Bandcamp or their website or anything that I can find that can get you to their music if you're interested in it. All right, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, you guys stay safe out there. Keep being awesome. And also, tomorrow is the last day of this week's theme. And have a fantastic morning, evening, or afternoon whenever you choose to watch my videos.